Finally made it to New York, and all the fighters have poured in for the open workouts, and we have an amazing event coming this week, an historic event. Before we talk about anything MMA, it would be a huge help if you guys can give us 5 stars down below. You're listening to episode number 24 of Pure Evil MMA. We're going to be breaking down this epic card, so make sure you give us 5 stars down below. It would really help boost our ratings. And make sure you share this with all your MMA friends and family. Let's get right into today's show. New York City, East Coast. Welcome home.
I'm Paul Felder, and you're listening to Pure Evil MMA.
What's going on, guys? It's Evil Eddie from Pure Evil MMA, Pro Wrestling Authority Podcast and Network, and it is episode number 24 of Pure Evil MMA. I got a couple of huge guests, and also I got the lineup for this weekend's event. UFC 205, Ted Czech's coming on. Minion has a great segment set up for everybody. So thanks for tuning in, whether you're at the gym, on your morning jog, cleaning, or if you're just chilling. Make sure you guys subscribe down below. We do the show every week. Find us on YouTube as well. Give us a follow on Twitter at Pure Evil MMA. Blair Tugman stops by. Brenden Allen, who's going to be fighting for Valor Fight 39 middleweight title. We have so much to talk about, but really, the real story is UFC 205, New York City. They all poured in today for the open workouts. It was hilarious. Conor McGregor making a three-pointer. But we're going to get into all that later on in the show. Let's get right into things. This historic card, New York City, right here in my home of the East Coast. I can feel it pouring through my windows all over social media. It was an epic week, a historic week already. Donald Trump becoming the next president. He's going to be taking office in January, just a couple weeks away. And also, guys, the rest of this year, 2016, is stacked with events. I'm going to be reviewing all that in our weekly news segment. But first, let's talk a little Bellator. Bellator was this weekend. We talked about it on the last podcast. UFC Mexico, of course, was this weekend as well. But Mr. Wonderful shutting out Liam McGeary, taking the title. I want to know who you guys think Mr. Wonderful should be fighting next. And then, of course, Tito Ortiz versus Chael Sonnen. What do you guys think about that? Make sure you let me know on social media, on our Twitter page, and also give us a like on Facebook, Pure Evil MMA on Facebook. All of our media is on there. All of our Twitter posts, all of our YouTube interviews, the show I do every Wednesday night live on YouTube with Ted Czech. Don't forget about that, guys. If you listen to the show and you want to, you wish you can be talking back to me while you're listening to the podcast, don't worry. That's already set up for you guys. The Pure Evil Army is ranked in, and every Wednesday night, 10 p.m. Eastern Time, me and Ted Czech, who you guys are going to be hearing a little bit if you don't already know who the infamous Ted Czech is. But we're going to be breaking down this card. I'm going to be talking about the weekly news in a second, but first, Bellator put on a great event. I have to give a huge shout out to the Irish Brennan Ward for that knockout. Going in there, absolutely nuts. He was the underdog here. We love him at home, though. And goes in there, gets the knockout, and things are set. Rep in CT. The last time I went to go watch him fight, he lost. So it was nice to see him get the win in there. Also on this card from Connecticut, Blair Tugman, who is actually going to be coming up right now on Pure Evil MMA. Let's check out Blair Tugman, who also fought on this card, and then we'll review UFC Mexico really quick, and then quick weekly news updates. Minion has something special planned for everybody. I can't wait to get into today's show. Let's start with Bellator from this weekend. Blair Tugman. Blair, you over there, brother? All right, guys, I got another special treat for us. We all watched Bellator this weekend, and I actually got somebody who was on that card, and someone who's from right here in Connecticut, and someone who's from right here close to New Haven, Connecticut. On top of it all, we got Blair, the Bull Shark Tugman, on the line. What's going on, Blair?
What's up, Eddie? Thanks for having me, man.
I appreciate you coming on, and you just fought at Bellator. How was that?
Oh, awesome experience. A great card. Lots of great talent, and I had a really tough fight there with Walter, so came out on top. So it was a great weekend.
And you weren't the only one from the gym over here at Andrews that fought on the card, correct? There was also another fighter.
Yeah, so Chris Foster, a good friend of mine and training partner, he fought right before I did, and he won a decision as well. So a great weekend as far as Bellator went for Ultimate MMA fighters, Chris and myself.
And for people out there that have no idea who Andrew is, guys, Andrew Calandrelli, you got to remember Andrew Calandrelli from Bellator. And I saw some posts this week about him maybe making a return. How true is that?
Yeah, man, I hope he does. He's one of my best friends. I've known Andrew since 2007, and I've been training with him for that amount of time, and we've built quite a friendship together. And he's more than a friend. He's a coach. He's a mentor, and to be able to possibly see him compete again, maybe one more time, would be awesome for me as a fan. And he's pretty adamant. He seems like he's starting to get back into shape. He's been picking up his training a little bit, so. I think there's a definite possibility that you could see Andrew possibly fighting at 170 in the near future. I don't think 155 is in the card for him anymore, but 170 for sure.
Yeah, I saw him talking about that. And you know what? Whatever floats his boat right now, because we all been waiting for him to come back, a lot of us local guys. What brought you to his gym, though? Well, how'd you find Andrew's gym over there in North Haven, New Haven line over there on State Street?
Yeah, so funny story. I mean, I grew up in New Jersey. I went to college at Lock Haven, Pennsylvania, and I trained. You know, I was teammates with guys like Tim Bosch, Mike Sesnilovich, Sarah
from
McMahon,
Pennsylvania. Yep.
Charlie Brenneman, all UFC vets now. And my buddy Mike Sesnilovich was the one that kind of got me started. He was doing jiu-jitsu back when we were in college, and we didn't really know what it was back then. And he's like, hey, start training, start competing in some jiu-jitsu grappling tournaments. I was like, I don't really know anything. He's like, you'll do fine. You got a good wrestling background. So I started going with Mike to some tournaments, and I had some success while I was out in Pennsylvania. And then when I moved back down to New Jersey and moved out to Connecticut, I said, hey, Mike, do you know any good gyms out this way? And Andrews was one of his suggestions. I stopped in there, first gym I went to, and never looked back. I've been with Andrew ever since, and very lucky to have found Andrew and his gym. And he's, like I said, he's a good friend, a great coach.
So you were just saying that when your friend was introducing you to it, you didn't really know what BJJ was or jiu-jitsu. What was your eye-opening? What was your eye-opening experience for like MMA?
Yeah, so we like I said, we were just wrestlers pretty much at Lock Haven, and Mike was, the UFC was kind of getting started there when I was in high school, and I was a fan of the UFC, but again, I didn't really follow it like I do now. Yeah. And right after I competed in my first tournament with Mike, I was thrown into like the absolute division and had no experience, and I did all right. I ended up taking fourth and wrestled some big guys and beat some big guys and lost to some big guys, but that was like right then and there, I was like, this is for me. I love this. It's something that I want to do, and I haven't stopped ever since. So I have to give all the credit to Mike Sesnilovich for starting me on this path, and then obviously Andrew for keeping me on the path and getting me where I am today.
Well, since it's 2016, one of the biggest news, some of the biggest news to come out this year is MMA being legalized in New York, us being so close, and Bellator giving rumors of next year possibly having an event there. They want to do it the right way. World Series of Fighting was kind of overshadowed so far by this event that's going down this weekend. Would you want to be on that Bellator card come 2017?
Oh, 100%. I mean, anytime I get a chance to fight for a promotion like Bellator, I'd be excited for it. But to be involved in something at Madison Square Garden would just take it to a whole other level. So I would be chomping at the bit to be on something like that if they were ever to do it. I'm excited for this weekend's UFC out there. I mean, it's going to be an amazing event. And just to be in Madison Square Garden and competing would be a phenomenal experience.
So, New York City being so close, how many times have you been to the city?
Andrew and I go in at least once a week, and we train at Marcelo Garcia's down there in New York. So we're in there quite a bit. As far as like just hanging out in the city, I have some friends in there, so every once in a while I get to go out and hang out down there. Hopefully, I'm going to get down there this weekend and actually be at the UFC and check it out in person.
Dude, I'm going to be the first one and probably the millionth one to tell you how jealous I am of you right now. Towards the end of the interview, I have to ask you what your pick is, either Conor McGregor or Eddie Alvarez. I've been asking everyone. I even asked Bilal Muhammad for his pick on it, and he's on the card. So I hope that you can give me your answer. But we got listeners all over the world, Blair. I got a lot of people listening down in Brazil, a lot of people in California, Canada, and I'm always talking about how amazing the pizza is here. I mean, how do you enjoy Connecticut? What's your favorite part about Connecticut?
I mean, I love Connecticut, and definitely the food is definitely a big aspect when I can eat it and enjoy it.
I'm always talking about Worcester Street.
Right now I can enjoy it. So you got great places like Pepe's and Modern Pizza. The pizza's amazing out here. I also like Connecticut because it's close to the shore. You got hills and mountains and places to hike. It's a beautiful state. So I just like our area. We're very lucky to live in this area. As far as the cold goes, I'm not a huge fan, but I'll live.
It's weird because us here on the East Coast, we can never get comfortable. Like, it's always either too hot, too cold. Like this morning, perfect example. I'm sure you woke up extra early like all the rest of the fighters do, and you felt that cold bite on your nose this morning walking out the door. And then this afternoon, it's like 60 degrees out. It's like, what's going on? And then on top of it, the time changed as well. I almost had a heart attack. I looked at the clock. I was like, oh my God, I missed the interview. And I'm like so messed up from the temperature changes, the time changes, but the foliage and everything. Connecticut's an exciting place to live. But did you cast your vote today? I don't want to get into politics or anything, but did you get to the polls?
Yes, I did. I'll keep my vote to myself. I don't want to anger anybody. I know people get pretty upset about that.
Well, can you just tell everybody how important it is in this day to make a vote, whether it's for anyone? How important is it to vote?
I think it's extremely important to be able to, as a community, voice our thoughts and opinions and elect officials that are going to represent our country to the best of their ability. So I think it's extremely important that everybody gets out there and votes at some point today.
So now, this is your fifth fight with Bellator. Correct me if I'm wrong. I actually got the chance of watching you fight live when Benson Henderson fought. I think that was, what was that, August, June? I think it was. Bellator
was that
153.
What was that, Kin Moy, or was that Perrin?
Oh, Perrin. Jennifer March.
That was Jay Perrin. Yeah, that was the last one.
Yeah, in April.
Yeah, April.
What was that like? Bring us through that experience of being on a huge Bellator card.
Yeah, I've been very lucky. I've been able to fight and compete on big cards throughout my career. I've been on cards with Chael Sonnen and Eddie Alvarez, Ben Henderson, you name it, Czech Congo. So just to be able to Phil Davis recently, to fight on cards with these guys is just an amazing experience. So I'm very lucky in that aspect to be able to compete alongside some of the greats in our sport.
And how is your fight camp going? Before this fight, how was your fight camp?
Fight camp was great. I got a good 8 weeks in, and like I said, Andrew does an amazing job as far as helping coach and find me training partners. We brought Chris Foster into our gym, and we're very lucky to have Chris in there. So me and Chris got to do a lot of sparring rounds with each other. I have great teammates in Brett Kerpa, Harry Adamo, Justin Christie, and then like I said, Andrew brings me down to Marcelo Garcia's in New Haven, where I grapple against some of the top grapplers in the world every Wednesday. So the training camp was just phenomenal. I felt great at 145. In the past, I've fought at 35, and going up to the extra 10 pounds definitely helped in the way I felt throughout the fight. So it couldn't have went better. I'm really happy with the way camp went and how I feel, and no major injuries, a little dinged up, but feeling good and ready to start training again.
So this weekend was a huge card for Bellator. It was right up there with some of the best cards they put on this year. Were you able to watch the main event?
I wasn't able to watch it because I was in the back warming up. I fought after the main event. So me and Chris Foster actually were the first we were the last two fights. So Chris went on right after the main event, and then I went on right after Chris. So I was in the back kind of getting ready. But you could hear everybody talking, and it sounded like Phil Davis controlled it from start to finish, which I was not surprised with Phil's wrestling background and MMA background. He's a pretty tough, solid guy. So, but I didn't get to watch it personally.
Well, some of the other big news going on in Bellator right now, and under your roof, is the Chael Sonnen versus Tito Ortiz. Are you excited to see that, or what?
Yeah, I can't wait. Chael's funny guy. He's great for the sport as far as creating publicity and a lot of excitement about fights. And I know fun fact is that Chael Sonnen pinned Tito Ortiz in college when they wrestled in like 30 seconds. So it should be an interesting matchup. I'm excited for it. Yeah. I love Chael.
We're all really excited for it. Bellator's been putting on some really decent cards lately, and it's been a huge year for MMA in 2016. What has been one of your takeaway fights so far in your career that if somebody could look back on one of your 15 fights, what fight would you suggest them to watch?
I think my last one. I think you're only as good as your last fight, and I think my last fight was probably one of my best performances. People consider me to be more of a wrestler and a grappler, and in this fight I showcased some pretty good striking abilities with Walter and mixed things up a little bit. So if I had to pick one fight to look back on, it would be this one, and hopefully moving forward to the next one. But I was very happy with the way I performed Friday. And
I got a fan question right here from you, from the kid. Sure. Where does the nickname the Bull Shark come from? Who gave you that name, and what's the significance of it?
That's a good question. So one of my first clothing sponsors came up with the name the Bull Shark, and they said, "Well, you're a tiny guy, you're small, but you're aggressive, and bull sharks are supposed to be some of the most aggressive and mean sharks in the ocean." So I said, "Hey, let's roll with it. Small and aggressive and a shark." So that's where the Bull Shark came from.
Have you ever had a shark experience, or are you afraid of sharks? Or
to be honest, I'm scared to death of sharks.
Me too.
So when I was younger, I didn't mind going in the ocean and bodyboarding, surfing. Now, if I go up to my knees, I'm like scared to death of a shark coming up and biting me. So,
well, correct me if I'm wrong. It's the bull shark that has been making a lot of the attacks around here. And in recent years, they've been seeing some sharks travel over here to Connecticut.
Exactly.
It's a scary thing when you grew up watching Jaws and Deep Blue Sea, you know?
Yeah, so, exactly.
One of the things that we got to deal with living over here in Connecticut, but I'll take it. Even though that water's not the cleanest water around here in the Sound.
Right.
It's right. It's been trapped there for so long, it just can't refresh itself. But as we get towards the end of the interview, what's next for you? What are you planning moving forward? What do you think's coming next?
So we're in talks about possibly something in maybe January, something pretty big as far as an opponent goes, but we're waiting to hear back from who it is. I can't really tell you much more than that, but it would be a pretty big name. And if it's not January, then they're thinking about possibly June for another organization, Reality Fighting. And then I think Bellator is back in April, from what I understood. And obviously I would love to be on that card as well, moving forward. But as of right now, there's nothing specifically lined up. There's just some things in the works, and keeping my fingers crossed for the big name fight.
And another thing I wanted to ask you, have you ever been starstruck before? Because I know they got an amazing roster over there, and there's some pretty big stars there. Have you ever met a star where you've been like literally starstruck before?
I try not to like be I am a fan, but I try not to be starstruck. But I will admit that I did meet Vanderlei Silva, who I was a huge fan when he fought in Pride. Somebody that I looked up to, and after my last fight with Jay Perrin, he was at the Johnny Rockets there in Mohegan Sun, so I had to go up to him and get a picture with him and say hi. And I thought that was pretty cool because I've looked up to Vanderlei for quite some time now.
Please tell me that you got a milkshake from Johnny's.
Absolutely. How could you not?
They do the old-fashioned, for all my listeners out there, Johnny Rockets is kind of like an old-fashioned kind of restaurant they have in the casino, and I love the casino up here. They're always putting on great shows, whether it's Bellator or anything. It's always fun to go around here, and we're so lucky because we got two of the biggest casinos around. I mean, do you go out after your fight to walk around the casino, do a little gambling? Do you do any of that or no?
Yeah, no, I love the casino atmosphere. I think it's awesome. So I always try and hang out with some friends and family after the fights, depending on what time we get out of there. And this one was late, so I didn't have much time. So we just went to Johnny Rockets. But you can find me on a poker table every once in a while. I'm a no-limit type guy, so I like playing some cards every once in a while. But after fights, I generally try and just hang out with friends and family and go eat some good food and have a couple adult beverages and relax.
You ever talk with your opponent after the fight, win or lose?
Yeah, I mean, I don't hold any ill will towards Walter. There's been some opponents in the past where I did not like them, but Walter's not one of those guys. He came in there to win, and it was a good fight, and we're friends afterwards, But during it, obviously, we're trying to kill each other. But I have nothing bad to say about Walter whatsoever. He's a tough opponent. He's a good guy, and it was an honor to fight him.
Well, another thing that my diehard listeners are into, or my diehard MMA fans that listen to the show, I should say, are really into that Bellator brings to the table is the kickboxing that Bellator's been doing. And they just recently signed Jarena Bars, who we all know is the Cyborg Killer. She's been on this show before. Are you excited for her to come on to Bellator Kickboxing? That's a huge name on there. That is the Ronda Rousey of Muay Thai.
Yeah, no, Bellator is doing an unbelievable job as far as bringing in new talent, and she's definitely at the top of the list, and I'm excited to see her do her thing in the kickboxing events. I mean, I think Bellator is just continuing to rise as far as publicity and the skill level and the skill sets that are in the organization. So I'm very, very lucky to be a part of probably one of the top programs or top organizations in the world in Bellator.
Yeah, Scott Coker is doing an amazing job. I always like to give him a shout out. He's a great guy. He's always, talked with the fans. He's always very open. He's like someone really easy to talk to. I mean, when you guys were last at the casino, not this weekend, but the last event that you fought at, he was just sitting around drinking coffee, letting people come up, take pictures with him. He's great. I mean, what has been some of your favorite things that are, or favorable things that have changed recently with Bellator?
I just think that they take care of their fighters. I'm pretty friendly with a lot of their staff, Ian Matthews and Sid Yee and Dean and those guys and Jeff. I think that they genuinely care about their fighters, and they just put on great shows and they take care of us. I really don't have much more to say than that. And it's always exciting to fight for those guys and put on a good show in front of the Mohegan crowd, which is constantly huge at the Mohegan, which was another huge crowd this past weekend. So they're just doing an unbelievable job as far as promoting and marketing the sport and putting on great shows, great fights.
And they're signing some huge names as well from over in the UFC. But I have to say this because I'm from CT. We had another brother fight this weekend on the Bellator card. What did you think about his performance? Were you able to watch the replay of the Irish Brennan Ward?
No, Brennan's a beast. I got to see the knockout there, and that guy, he comes in to take heads. He collects skulls. So he's either going out on his shield or he's taking somebody out on it. So he's phenomenal. I was happy for him. Like I said, he's a good kid, and he's always joking around in the back in the locker room and stuff. So I was happy to see him get back on the winning track there and getting a solid KO.
Especially right here in Connecticut. All right, so this weekend, UFC 205, I brought it up earlier. Conor McGregor, Eddie Alvarez. How do you think this is going to go down?
Yeah, it's a good fight. It's a great fight. There's a lot of great fights. I think it's a tough, stylistically, a tough matchup for Eddie. I love Eddie, and like I said, I've been lucky enough to fight on some of his cards with him. He likes to stand and bang. I know he has a little bit of a wrestling background, but generally, when you watch Eddie fight, he likes to stand and throw hands, and that plays right into Conor's game, I think. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see what kind of fight Eddie brings to Conor. And I think Conor's weakness in the past has been his grappling and his wrestling. But I don't know if Eddie's going to try and exploit that or if he's going to stand and bang with him, which could get real interesting because that's Conor's game. If I had to pick, I'm going to pick Eddie. I'm going to go with Eddie for this one. But I think it's going to be an incredible fight. I think it's going to be a war.
Do you see it ending earlier, or do you think it might end in like the 4th, 5th, maybe decision?
I think it'll be a late round stoppage or a late fight stoppage. I don't see these guys going to a decision. I think like 4th or 5th round, I could see someone getting like a TKO or a KO.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on Pure Evil MMA, Blair. What I usually like to do at this point in the interview is I give the imaginary microphone over to you, and if there's anything I missed, anything you want to talk about, any sponsors, shout-outs, anything at all, brother, the floor is now yours.
Yeah, so first, I just want to thank you, man, for having me on. I appreciate the support and everything you do for the sport of MMA. Without guys like you, we wouldn't be who we are. So I really appreciate that. I want to thank all my teammates at Ultimate MMA, my coach, Andrew Calandrelli, for always being in my corner and helping me get to where I am. My friends, my family, all my Team Tugman wrestlers and parents that come out and support me. And that's pretty much it. Oh, Bad Boy for sponsoring me, and that's pretty much it. Oh, at the Loki and the Jabroni show as well. Thank you guys for always being there and supporting me. And that's it.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on. I really hope that Coach Andrew gets back in there, and I hope Tyler Rose continues his career. He's a young fighter, exciting fighter. He's been on here before. I really appreciate you coming on, and you have a great day.
Oh, and Marissa Belcherina, she just won a world title.
Oh, man.
The Spider Monkey, purple belt world champ. So look out for her.
I need to get her on the show. I've been seeing so many articles. Nutmeg MMA just interviewed her. Very excited.
Yes.
So we'll have to get her on here. Have a great day, Blair, and thanks for coming on Pure Evil MMA.
Hey, it's Bellator's Blair Tugman. You're listening to Pure Evil MMA.
All right, guys, that was Blair Tugman from Bellator, who put on an amazing fight, getting the win, representing our amazing state of Connecticut, representing the East Coast. And not only that, guys, UFC Mexico is this weekend, and we have some winners from our UFC Pick'em app. And if you are new to listening to this podcast, you have no idea what I'm talking about, and you want to play along, all you got to do is send me a message on Twitter or on Facebook at Pure Evil MMA, and I'll send you the link for this, UFC Pick'em. And what we do is every UFC event, you pick your pick. Say, for instance, you want Conor McGregor coming up at UFC 205. You think Conor's going to win in the first round via knockout. You make your pick on UFC Pick'em. You enter it. I give you the link for our league. And if you win, I'll announce your name right here on the podcast. And we have some winners this week. Very, very close between Pat and Dan. We're going to get into that in a second. But a quick review on this card. I don't want to spend too much time on it. But listen. Dos Anjos has not been looking the same. He just hasn't. And I know that a lot of people are like, well, he did beat Cowboy by knockout viciously. But then Eddie Alvarez going in there and just did work on RDA. And then this weekend, RDA was wearing Tony Ferguson, literally. Tony Ferguson going in there looking amazing. And then Diego Sanchez pulling off a crazy wall climb in his fight. I think a lot had to do with the elevation there against his opponent, Marcin Held. He was running out of breath. Really kind of got desperate in the last round, realizing that he really needed that submission if he was going to win. But you know what? Diego Sanchez, what a warrior he is. And ends up grinding it out for the win. Ricardo Lamas getting the win. And I know I picked against him, guys. Don't give me too hard of a time because I got 10 out of 13 right. So if you did listen to my picks, congratulations, because I did win you some money. But this one was off. You know what? Charles Oliveira was overweight here, 9 pounds overweight. Whatever happened with that McDonald's photo, however old it was, it still surfaced. It didn't look good at the time. And it didn't look good that he keeps missing weight. So I don't know. I thought that his size advantage, because being overweight during this fight, was going to get him the win, and it was. At the beginning of that fight, he was grinding out Ricardo Lamas, and it looked like he was going to win. Ricardo Lamas escaped a couple of submission attempts, and going into that second round, Oliveira dominated him that very first round, but that second round, Ricardo Lamas lucks out, sinks in a choke, stayed calm, and just poured the squeeze on tighter and tighter. Oliveira eventually taps, making Ricardo Lamas the winner of this match, and I'm so happy for him. He wanted this fight so bad. The BJ Penn fight fell through. He said, I don't care that you're even overweight, Charles Oliveira. I want to fight. He goes in there. Didn't look good in that first round. Submits the victory via submission. So congratulations. Beneil Dariush beating Magomedov. And then Alexa Grasso winning in her debut against Heather Jo Clark. Congratulations. It was a great card, guys. I don't want to spend too much more time on it. Tony Ferguson is officially now the #1 contender in that division. And I know Khabib is going to be fighting this weekend. So we still have that. I mean, Khabib has never been defeated before in his entire career. I know that Tony Ferguson has a 9-fight win streak, which is unheard of in that division and never happened before. But Khabib, man, that fight has to happen. And depending on the winner of UFC 205, Eddie Alvarez or Conor McGregor, whoever's holding that belt, Tony Ferguson is in line. But once again, it could be cul-de-sac. It could be a little time before we see a fight there if Conor does win. But either way, I would love to see Tony Ferguson versus Eddie Alvarez. But seriously, if Khabib wins, come on, UFC, let's do it. Finally has to go down. Khabib, Tony Ferguson, let's do it. All right, guys, I got some bad news about UFC 205. You all know about Rashad Evans versus Tim Kennedy. It was pulled. And this is one of the only injuries on the card. Apparently, this goes back to Rashad's childhood. It was a childhood injury to his brain. It showed up in the CAT scan. New York officials don't want to risk it. Therefore, they postponed this fight to UFC 206. Rashad Evans quoted saying it's not that big of a deal, but man, if it's a CAT scan in your brain, I mean, it can't be good. There's no way it can be good. I'll tell you that much. And it's just an upset because it really meant something to Rashad Evans to fight on this card. It was a huge fight for Rashad. Tim Kennedy, no joke though. Tim Kennedy wanted anyone to step in. He was personally DMing people for a fight. I felt bad. He was on the plane when he found out on his way to New York City. What a bummer, but don't worry. UFC 206 is coming. And also, guys, February, it was announced for the Barclays Center. UFC is coming to Brooklyn. How about that? Back over here. Not only are they going to be at UFC Albany, our friend Jody already got her tickets for that, and I'm going to be trying to cover that. But now, the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. I'm so pumped. I'm so happy that it's legal here now. And we have a great event set up for this weekend. But that is the only setback, guys. Knock on wood. I mean, we still have a couple days to go. But Tim Kennedy, Rashad Evans, postponed till UFC 206. All right, guys. So I brought up UFC fighters reacted to Donald Trump's win. And I don't want to spend any time at all really talking about politics. I've lost enough followers already, and I didn't even say who I was going for. People just are so crazy when it comes to politics, and I understand that for sure. I'm not going to spend any time on it, but I'm going to let you guys know what UFC fighters thought about this. Well, Dana White, we all know that he's a Donald Trump supporter. He tweets out the smiley face emoji with the wink and the tongue out. Thought that was kind of perfect. Of course, Dana White is voting for Donald Trump. That did not surprise me one bit. And then Derek Lewis with the best meme of all. Donald Trump and Conor McGregor arguing with one another. Let me show it for you really quick.
We're going to build the wall. We have no choice. We have no choice. Shut your fucking mouth. You'll do nothing. You'll do fucking nothing. Not one of you will do nothing. Build that wall. 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 That's all right. Hey, you Connor. Connor, don't build us fucking. Yeah, Connor. Connor.
That has to get tweet of the week. That was priceless, literally priceless. A lot of people very upset that Trump won. No one saw it. My state of Connecticut actually ended up voting for Hillary. Hillary won in my state. But guess what, guys? I saw the best thing ever. Once again, the Simpsons have foreseen the future. They predicted this exact thing. I'll post it up on my Twitter. My girlfriend was showing me all about it. Also in the weekly news, Angie Jabs is having an affair with me with Nick Diaz. Yeah, and I'm not making this up. This is a true story. All right, this goes back a couple months ago where Angie started following Nick on Snapchat, all innocent, following him on Snapchat. All of a sudden, he decides he wants to check my girlfriend's page out, so starts watching her videos. Sends her a message. Now he's in New York. New York and Connecticut are right next to one another. So there's a message on her Snapchat that she's been rubbing in my face. I'm going back and forth talking. He goes, how far away is Connecticut? What? What? My girlfriend's having an affair with me? A Snapchat affair with Nick Diaz? What is going on? I have to call it out. Nick Diaz, back off my girlfriend, Mel. That is my girl. I actually told her, though. I was like, really? I was like, you should totally go. And honestly, he doesn't want a fangirl, obviously. I mean, he'd probably end up dropping her off at the corner if she doesn't put out. So, but me as a fan, I'm just like, oh my God, really? So, yep, I'm getting Snapchat cheated on by Angie Jabs. And you know what? She's not going to do it because if UFC fighter was like, hey, you want to hang out? She'd be so pissed. He would be so mad. So, somebody like Nick Diaz, though, come on. I wouldn't be able to resist it. I don't know if I'd be able to resist it. I would love to meet Nick. And you know what? I would love to try to get him on to explain himself. Back off my girlfriend, Nick. Also, another announcement, guys. March 18th, the UFC will be returning to London, England. And I'm very excited to think who is going to be on this card. I think that it's going to be enough time for Bisping to defend his title. I don't know against who. We're going to have to wait for Chris Weidman versus Yoel, which me and Ted are going to be breaking down for you in a minute. Or is it going to be Bisping versus Jacare? Because that's what I would love to see. Or will it be twisted around? Will we see Bisping versus GSP? Who knows? But the UFC is going to be back in March 18th, back in London. So let me know what you guys think about that and who you would like to see on our Twitter page at Pure Evil MMA. Also, guys, in the news this week, John Bones Jones suspended for 1 year. Now, originally, if we go back, UFC 200, he was supposed to headline this. He was supposed to headline and fight DC for the championship belt. He beat OSP, won the interim belt. Now he's moving up, fighting DC, and it was about to go down. I think we were 24 hours away, and he gets popped. USADA pulls him. He gets in trouble, and it was supposed to be a 2-year suspension, and it was hard for us to all think about that. I mean, he just returned after all the mess that he got himself into. And here we go again. We were all giving him another chance. Ariel did his walk-along interview. We were all excited for it. He made the fight with OSP, and now he was going to be fighting at UFC 200, the biggest card, supposedly, in UFC history, and he blew it. So here we go. The suspension finally goes through. It's only a 1-year suspension, and he is stripped of his interim title. I know he said he does not care about it. It's not the belt that he wants. It's not the belt that he's deserved in the octagon. Not outside the octagon, but in the octagon. And, that's true. But you know what? DC and Rumble are going to be fighting for that title, not John Bones Jones, because John Bones Jones, like Dana White says, is his own worst enemy. However, I'm still a huge fan of John, and I really think he is one of the greatest of all time. It's just very sad when you see somebody struggling the way that John has been struggling, and I've struggled before in my life. And, it took my family and my friends to help me realize that I was my own worst enemy, and we all thought that John Bones Jones realized that same thing. all right, man, you got your second chance. You're on the UFC 200 card, and you blew it. So, is this just a slap on the wrist to John Bones Jones? How many chances are they going to give this guy? They've given him more chances than they've given Vitor Belfort. It's just getting a little crazy. This is the last chance with John Bones Jones. This is the last straw, if you ask me. And I think a lot of you guys out there would agree with me on this one. What do you guys think? He's suspended. It's supposed to be 2 years. But the crazy thing is, it was sexual enhanced drugs. Like, did he want to get longer? Did he want to last longer? Or what does a 20-year-old, a guy in their late 20s need with sexual enhancing drugs? I don't know. I don't use them. But the real thing is, does John even really care? Does he really care? They just announced that he's going to be in a grappling match with Dan Henderson. So there you go. He's not going to be inactive totally. Ted Czech's not all for this, but you know what? At least he's staying active. He's already served some of this time because the suspension happened in July, I'm pretty sure. So he's already served a couple of the months. But he'll be back in there soon. We're just going to have to wait until then. And hopefully he won't get into his way again. All right, guys, I got our second guest of the night coming on right now. And you know what? Right after that is we're going to be breaking down UFC 205, and I cannot wait. But first, let's get into our UFC Pick'em winners of this week for UFC Mexico. Minion, are you there to announce the winners, brother?
The Pure Evil MMA army is taking over, uniting fans, followers, MMA fighters, and elite evil family contributors from all over the world. And this is a call to all MMA fans. Your opinions count, and we want to hear from you. Use hashtag PureEvilMMA on Twitter, or leave a comment on any video or article on the Facebook page or YouTube channel. Find your voice and come join the ranks of the Pure Evil MMA army. Like these soldiers of the week, ready to receive a shout-out salute from Evil Eddie himself.
So this week, our members of the week, this week is Gary Jackson, MMA. Gary, you are the member of the week for engaging with us all week, talking about UFC and MMA, and always checking in with the chat room. I appreciate that. And we also have UFC Pick'em members of the week. Let's jump right into that. If you guys want to be a member of the week, all you got to do is use hashtag PureEvilMMA, engage with us, talk some MMA, let us know what you think about the show, and play along with us during every UFC and MMA event that we go through.
Since 1993, MMA fighters from all over the world have gone into battle, shedding blood, sweat and tears to prove that they are worthy of holding the title of champion. At every UFC event, as the fighters throw down in the octagon for our entertainment, each hoping to validate that they are the best by someday having a UFC belt strapped around their waist. A second competition rages amongst the Pure Evil army for the right to lay claim to the prestigious Crystal Skull belt, for ultimate pick'em bragging rights over their evil brothers and sisters in arms. And this week, after climbing their way to the top of the Pure Evil ranks, the prominent honours of the Crystal Skull are awarded to...
This week, the Crystal Skull is actually... We have two winners here, but the real winner here is Ann. Chillzone 95. Congratulations, Ann. You won this week with some bonuses, but you know what? You were so close because Pat was right there getting every single fight right, and we have to give him an applause on that. That's a very hard thing to do. Make sure you guys give both of these amazing UFC Pick'ems a follow on our UFC Pick'em app. Patrick Chapman at PMC_MMA on Twitter. And also make sure you guys give Ann a follow at Chillzone95 on Twitter. Check their picks out this week. And if you want to play along, make sure you message me on Twitter at PureEvilMMA for your chance to win and have your name announced on Pure Evil MMA podcast. All right, guys, we have our second special guest of the night, and then we are going to get into the celebrations of what I've been calling UFC Christmas of UFC 205. Ted Czech's going to be coming on. Minion has something special planned, but let's get into our second interview of the night. We have a surprise, somebody who's fighting for the middleweight title for Valor Fights, and I am so pumped about this. All you guys got to do to check out Valor Fights, you don't need a TV, all you need is your computer and flowcombat.com. That's right, Brenden Allen, who's going to be fighting at Valor Fight 39 for the middleweight title, is coming on right now. Let's give him a call.
Hello?
All right, guys, it sounds like we have our first guest fighter of the night, Brenden Allen, who's going to be fighting at Valor Fights 39 coming December 2nd. How's it going, Brenden?
Good, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing awesome. Where are you right now doing the podcast?
I'm just sitting in my living room right now, man. Just got done getting a shower from training and getting a little food.
And are you ready for this weekend's fight? I know that you have an upcoming fight December 2nd. A lot of fighters aren't into watching fights. Are you one of those guys?
No, I watch everything that I can, man. Legacy, RFA, UFC, Bellator. I watch a little bit of everything. I like to know what's out there and like to see how the game's evolving so I can stick with it and go get ahead of it.
And I like to ask everyone I interview, what was one of your inspirations growing up? Like, what fighter was it? Was it, from being a little kid, we watched WWF growing up, Hulk Hogan, Stone Cold. But then as we got a little older and started going to Blockbuster, we saw UFC 1 and renting those, at least for me. What's your story like getting into MMA?
Well, I was always around sports as a kid. I mean, my dad was in the military, so I played sports on base and stuff like that. When he got out, I was able to play football, and my brother switched high schools and made a friend that was doing jiu-jitsu, and at that time, they was in the Couture and Liddell trilogy, and I believe it was the second fight that when I started watching UFC, and my brother's friend said he did jiu-jitsu and wanted to know if we would like to come try it out. My dad asked me, so we went over there and tried and watched, and I told my dad I definitely wanted to do it, and so he bought me a gi that day instead of letting me use one to try, and because I told him I'd stick with it instead of trying the week free, and I finished the season out in football and never played football again. Just trained jiu-jitsu, got into wrestling in high school, and started fighting when I was of age. So
before we talk about any of your upcoming fight, a huge problem in America and worldwide, especially with social media, is bullying nowadays. When you were younger and you went to these classes as a kid, how was it? Did you have a hard time people picking on you, or what was it like? Do you have any bullying experiences?
No, man, I really don't. I mean, my dad always raised me and my brother to stick up for ourselves. I mean, don't go looking for trouble and don't start anything. But I mean, if someone attempts to bully or put their hands on you, mainly put their hands on you. I mean, he always told us don't listen to the talk, but if they put their hands on you, that's a different story. So I never had that problem. I mean, I've gotten like one fight when I was little, and that was it. And after that, I've never had any trouble with that. It's just not something that I was raised to, I guess, have happened to me, I would guess.
Well, with social media nowadays, we see a lot of young kids struggling with it. They look up to fighters like yourself. If you have any words of advice for anyone out there that is being bullied, what would you like to say to them?
Honestly, man, I mean, the way the world's going today, man, people are just a whole bunch of talk. Usually you won't see anything action transpire from that. It's just a bunch of talk, and they'll try to get people to bandwagon with them to try to pick on others and things like that. I think it's all just being mentally strong and not worrying about what others think. Obviously, it's a lot easier said than done, but I think it's just about being raised to have mental toughness, and I think that comes from the parents and things like that. But it definitely can be a learned trait, and I think martial arts is a good way to give that to children.
I gotta agree, man. I think what they teach in gyms nowadays, I didn't learn in football or baseball, like you said. It's almost that gang mentality growing up, and we're seeing it a lot in social media nowadays, and fighters do. Anyone that puts himself out there got to deal with it. So I appreciate your words of advice, but man, you got a fight coming up December 2nd. You're 4-1 record with 2 knockouts, 2 submission wins, and you're going to be fighting in the main event for Valor Fight 39 against Sydney Wheeler. What can you tell us about your opponent?
Well, I'm actually 5-1. I mean, SureDog, they didn't put it on SureDog yet, but they have it on Tapology and everything else. But I mean, I know Sid, he's just gonna circle around and try to pace himself by circling and then trying to rush in real fast to throw a couple punches, and that's really all I think he's gonna do. I don't think he's gonna be able to handle my style, my strength, and my speed, things like that. I think it's just gonna be a bad night for him. I know after his last fight, he definitely won't take me down. So I'm not worried about it at all. I know I'm better everywhere, so I think I determine how the fight ends.
Are you somebody that likes to watch a lot of tapes on your opponent, or do you not like getting it into your head too much?
I used to watch all videos I could find. Now I just my dad watches all the videos, tells me what they're good at, what I need to be on the lookout for, what things I need to kind of, move a little bit in training or just kind of look for, and just sharpen up on. Because I try to stay well-rounded around everywhere. I don't really train for a specific fight, or I might just sharpen a tool here or there. But he watches all my videos. I might watch one or two just to make sure. But my dad tells me which ones to watch, which one's the best. So my dad's really my main video guy.
So it sounds like your father, is a big inspiration to you, and we see this with Chris Weidman, Wonderboy, who both fighters are going to be on that UFC 205 card. Does your father corner you?
Yes. Ever since I've turned pro, my dad he's always been in all my fights except for my world tournament in Las Vegas, just because he couldn't make it out, get away from work and everything. But he's been in all my pro fights. He's in all my pro fight corners. So it's definitely nice to have him there. It's a different bond between us than me and my coach or me and my friends or things like that. He knows me. Obviously, he's raised me since I was born, so he knows the goods, the bads, when something's not right, when something's going good, or how to change that around. So it's always good to have him in the corner. It's just that tool that I need.
So you fought in the WFC, the LFC. What brings you to Valor Fights?
Well, I had talked to Tim Lowe before. They had asked me to fight, or we had talked briefly before, and I asked how long it would take for me to fight Sid, because I just want to fight the best that I can come across. I'm not here to pad my record like a lot of guys are nowadays or anything like that. I want to make my way to the big show the old-fashioned way of work hard, fight the best to be the best. So I always saw everything happening with Sid. So I was like, hey, I want to fight Sid. Who do I got to beat in your organization to fight him? And they told a couple names and the timeline and things like that. So I booked a fight for Mid-City Fight Promotions, and against a guy with a lot of fights, and fought a lot of good guys. And after that, before that, let me back up. They had messaged me and asked me if I wanted to fight Sid on short notice because Joe Riggs had backed out. At that time, I had just verbally agreed to Renaissance MMA in New Orleans that I would fight Jordan Plaisance for their 185 title. So I told Tim that I had already verbally agreed and was just waiting on the contract for Renaissance. So I couldn't take it. 2 weeks later, Renaissance told me that I couldn't fight because I wasn't 21 and couldn't get into the casino. So then I had to go looking, and luckily Mid-City had a spot on there for me, so I took that fight, and Gerald stepped and fought Sid, who ended up winning and going to RFA and taking that title. So after that, I talked to Tim, and I was like, do you have anything before the year's end? And he was like, yes, sir, we have December. I was like, do you need an 85er? He said, possibly. And I asked him who he had for me. He was like, well, what do you think about Sid? And I told him I'm in. I talked to my family. They were good with the date, and went from there, made it happen.
I like to let my listeners know a little bit about like hobbies and stuff outside of fighting. We just had Halloween pass us by. What did you do for Halloween, and do you like horror movies?
I'm into horror movies a little bit. They don't really scare me anymore. When I was little, I used to obviously get scared and have nightmares, but now that I'm older, I don't know, they're all right. My fiance gets jumpy and all that kind of stuff, but they don't bother me that much. I was training on Halloween. I didn't have my niece. She was at her mother's house, so I trained and just getting ready, man. If I'm not training or hunting, then I'm at home hanging out with my family.
Oh, you're a hunter. What do you like hunting? Deer and turkey? What do you hunt for?
Oh, deer.
And do you eat
I
the
own
meat?
5 acres in Illinois.
Nice.
What's that?
Do you eat the meat? You eat the venison?
Oh, I'll eat anything that I kill. if I kill it, I gotta eat it.
Yeah, I gotta agree, man.
I can't let it go to waste.
You skin it and everything yourself?
Yeah, I'll skin it and debone it and everything like that, and then I'll just take it to a processor and have everything done. But this year, my buddy Zach, they have a place out in Schaumburg where they have some hogs and stuff like that where we go pig hunting. So we'll probably kill our own hog, and I'll hopefully kill a couple deer next week, and we'll mix it ourselves and everything and process it ourselves. So at least one of the deer we'll process ourselves.
Wow.
So just see how it comes out. So that'll be interesting.
Wild hogs, man. I mean, all of my listeners must know that you do not want to mess with any of those things. That's got to be pretty exciting. Have you ever done that before?
Oh yeah, man. We went like 4 or 5 times last year. We just used bows. I used my crossbow last year, and it was pretty insane. We had this like 500 pounder, and it was laying. It's in like a dump site. So there was this old mattress, and this 500 pounder was just racked out on the bed on the old mattress. And if you're downwind from them, you're fine, man. You're not gonna. They won't smell you or anything. So you can walk up on them and touch them, and then they'll know you're there. But other than that, they won't know anything. And if they can smell you, you're screwed, because they don't see very well, but they smell really and hear really good. But this one was laying on this bed, man. I got like 3 feet from it, and I was like, Zach, are you gonna shoot it if he gets up? And he's like, yeah, I got you. And so I walk over and I realize how big he was, and I was like, no, I'm good. I turned around and walked back behind the pile that he was at and throw a rock at it. And it scooted out of there. But we killed a 400 pounder, about a 350 pounder last year, and a couple like 150s. We didn't want the big ones because we couldn't get it out of there.
If they smell you, they'll run you down, right? They'll charge at you.
Unless you're real close or they have babies, they normally won't. But usually they'll just run away from you because they're pack animals, so they just want to get away. But if you have them cornered or if they have a baby, then they'll probably run at you. But we haven't had any run at us. If they smell us, they just take off the other way with their little packs that they have.
So as a hunter and as a fighter, how do those things connect with one another? I mean, when you're in the ring or in the octagon or in the cage, I mean, you got to stay calm, especially when somebody's trying to submit you or something. When you're out in the field, you got to stay really steady. Slow your breathing down or whatever to get the right aim. How do both fighting and hunting are similar to you? How are they both similar to you?
I try not to look too much into hunting, man. That's the one place I can go to actually get away and not think of fighting, and so that's just fun to me. Obviously fighting's fun, or else I wouldn't do it. But at times it can be stressful, and but when it's time to step in that cage, it's a serious time, and it's time to take care of business. And so I just try to keep them two separated. I don't really try to think too much into hunting. I just try to enjoy it while I can. You know, it's my few days of getaway, shall I say.
Well, speaking of wild animals, I know that a lot of fighters on fight night, a switch goes off. Does that wild animal instinct go off for you come fight night?
Not really. Since I've lost, it really helped me mentally more than anything. Before that, I never took anything away from my fights. I never could take away and be like, oh, I need to work on that, because I just look at it and be like, man, that's not me. Since that loss, I've been able to start coming into my own and calming down and not getting overzealous when I rock somebody and things like that. And so I just stay really calm now. Pick my shots and just try to play it like chess and stay ahead of my opponent, and think of my next move and where I'm going to go. So I try to be very smart, very, very calm, and when it's time to pounce, it's time to pounce, you know, but you got to do it. And it's kind of weird to say, but you still have to do it in a calm manner. You know, you can't just get out of hand, which I've done that, and it's got me in bad situations. And but yeah, I just stay calm, man.
As we get to the end of this interview, I got 2 more questions for you. If your opponent is listening in right now, what would you want him to know?
Man, I just hope he comes ready, man. I don't want no excuses. There's not going to be any excuses from my side. So, just no excuses, man. I'll be ready. I'll be there come fight night. And I'm not a big talker. I don't really have to talk to boast myself up. I know how good I am, and I just got to go out there and show it.
And my final question for you, and then we'll get over to you giving your shout-outs. I have to ask everybody this, or everyone will send me to the gallows if I don't ask every fighter I interview. UFC 205, you said that you're watching. Conor McGregor, Eddie Alvarez. Who does Brenden Allen side with here?
Man, I'm not gonna lie. I'm a Conor McGregor fan. I'm gonna go with Conor, man. His head movement and his punches, speed and accuracy is just something that can't be taught, man. He's got a natural ability, and he's definitely a great stand-up artist. I don't think Eddie can handle that punch that I think he'll be able to connect with within 5 rounds at some point or another. You know, I know Eddie's gonna come in there and try to put him against the fence and grind and stuff like he normally does and is good at, but he's taking some punches from other people that I don't think, and from what I've heard, doesn't hit as hard as Conor McGregor. So I got to go with Conor on this one.
I really appreciate the interview. What I usually like to do at the end, if there's anything that I missed, anything that you want to talk about or touch up on, or sponsors, shout-outs, the floor is now yours, brother.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it. It was good to talk to you. I'd like to thank all my sponsors, Anytime Fitness of Franklinton, K-Ray Construction, Jack Usher Construction, Friendly Motorsports is definitely a big one, along with K-Ray. Those are my 2 biggest sponsors that helped me out tremendously, along with all my other ones. I just want to thank my coach, Rich Clementi, my other jiu-jitsu coach, Sean Gayton, and all my training partners, Zach Fears, everyone at Allen Belchers that helps me out and spars and everything like that. It's been great. I can't wait for 2 weeks to put on the show and show everyone what I'm made of. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. Hey guys, it's Brenden Allen, and you're listening to Pure Evil MMA.
All right, guys, that was Brenden Allen. He's going to be fighting on Valor Fight 39 coming up in just a couple of weeks. And I had to ask every fighter I've interviewed in the past couple of weeks who they were going for on this upcoming event for UFC 205. I cannot even believe that this show is about UFC 205 at Madison Square Garden in New York. We did not think it was going to happen. We keep saying throughout the year, this is the biggest event. No. This is the biggest event. UFC 200. Is this going to blow UFC 200 out of the water? I want to know what you guys think about this. And if you want to play along and share your picks and predictions with us, all you got to do is follow me on Twitter at Pure Evil MMA or Evil_Echo. That's EVIL_ECCO. And let me know that you want the link to play UFC Pick'em, and you can have your chance for me to announce your name, just like we had before in the past segment for the Crystal Belt UFC Pick'em winner for the Pure Evil Army. We were told beginning of the year that we were getting ahead of ourselves, that this wasn't going to happen. There's no way that UFC was going to be coming to New York, especially around Christmas time. That was not in the books. Well, guess what? It's here, and we have the best event, the biggest show lineup I've ever seen in the history of covering this sport. This is bigger than any card we've seen in the past couple of years, in my opinion. If I'm wrong, let me know, but this is going to be exciting. Depending on what happens in that main event, this could be a card that you talking with your grandchildren about. Some of the best have fought here, and we're going to break it down for you. I can't even believe it's that time. It feels like MMA Christmas. Minion is ringing in right now to break this down for us. Ted is waiting by as well. We're going to be talking about Chris Weidman, Yoel Romero. This is going to be epic, guys. Minion, you there, brother?
Cheers, Eddie. What's up, MMA fans? Now, I know I sound like a broken record when I say what an incredible year 2016 has been for MMA, and in the UFC in particular, some of this year's more landmark moments have happened outside of the octagon. One of the most notable being this March, when the New York Assembly voted to end its 20-odd year ban on MMA and finally legalized the sport in the 50th state. So now, this Saturday, November 12th, exactly 23 years later to the exact day of the first ever UFC 1 event, the world's leading MMA promotion will make an historic historic return to New York, and where else to stage this momentous UFC 205 event but at none other than Madison Square Garden. So how does one make a return to the city so good they named it twice at one of the most recognised and celebrated sport arenas in the world? With the biggest of bloody bangs, that's how. And the UFC has put together what is universally agreed upon to be their strongest ever card for this Saturday night. And therefore, by default, it will be the biggest ever night in the history of the sport. Intriguing, competitive, solid matchups from top to bottom, fully displaying the high level of fighters at different stages of their careers that were available to the UFC for this event, and that only they can call upon to fight from their stacked roster of talent. Inevitably, some of you will know some of the fighters involved more so than others, but trust me when I say that this card doesn't have a single fight on it that doesn't deserve your attention if you claim to be a fan of MMA. And just to sweeten the pot even further, hoping to eradicate the bad memories of UFC 33, the main card that night will boast not just one, not two, but 3 title defences. First up, the ever-increasingly popular and seemingly endlessly improving champion, Joanna Jędrzejczyk, will make her 4th defence of a women's strawweight belt against Karolina Kowalkiewicz, a fellow Polish fighter equally undefeated in the UFC, who has been deemed the only other woman in the world possibly ready to bring it to the most dominant female fighter on the UFC roster. And this octagon-bound Polish civil war promises to highlight to everyone watching that night just why women's MMA is kicking ass and taking names at the moment. Following that, the unjustifiably criticised welterweight champion Tyron Woodley was set to convert the MMA masses to his cause by snapping the 7-fight win streak of many a fan's preferred 170-pounder Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Unprecedented fan demand led to the creation of this title fight, but popularity don't mean shit when that octagon door closes. The sheer hype surrounding this matchup would have justified a headlining slot on any other card this year, if not for the UFC 205 Pièce de Résistance main event, when newly crowned lightweight champ Eddie Alvarez looks to rewrite the script on the McGregor show, as the Irish featherweight champion hopes to claim his 2nd UFC belt and become the first ever simultaneous dual weight champion in the history of the organisation. A rare champion versus champion scenario, uniquely brilliant in its own right to cap off a simply unmissable night of UFC action. Just on a quick side note though, as if UFC 205 wasn't already enough to fulfill your MMA needs this Saturday, Cage Warriors, the British promotion that never fails to deliver, will also be putting on a great event that day. So if you've got this Saturday off work, you can completely binge out on MMA, as due to the time difference it'll be kicking off on UFC Fight Pass at 4 PM Eastern in the US. I know certain diehards like our evil sister Jodie will be tuning in to see the UFC destined Paddy Pimblett and Chris Fishgold defend their belts. Cage Warriors is simply on fire at the moment, and you can check out what all the hype is about as a tasty little warm-up for the UFC's biggest event later on that same night. In fact, it's safe to say, if I haven't already, UFC 205 promises to be the biggest night in MMA history. A card so good that even the ever-increasing band of MMA fans who whine, troll, bitch and moan about everything are they themselves struggling to find something negative to say about it. And of course, an event of this magnitude that also involves that notorious Irish one is bound to pull in mainstream media attention and attract those fickle on-again, off-again fans who only bother to tune in for the milestone moments. They're all going to be spinning their BS this week, speaking with their MMA fans' stolen valour, when in fact they haven't got a clue what they're on about. But just leave them to it, it is what it is. The real fans will have a night of MMA action ahead of them that will justify to the world just why this is the fastest growing sport, and what happens when the most elite athletes in the world lay it all down on the line for our entertainment. So maybe this UFC 205 card will therefore deliver the universal celebration of the sport that UFC 200 was meant to be, but failed to deliver for a lot of people. And what with so many UFC stars set to go through the usual pre-event hype routine of media scrums, open workouts, pre and ceremonial weigh-ins and so on, there's surely going to be no end of things to talk about this week in the lead up to the event itself.
What's up, MMA
and every
fans?
MMA fan and his dog will be weighing in on it all. Eddie, I can't think of a better way to say it than to quote our good friend Ted Czech, "It's a great day to be an MMA fan." But I'll send it back over to you now, mate, because I know you're champing at the bit to get stuck into this one, and I know that you've got a few of our fellow MMA media associates waiting on me to finish so they can weigh in on this card as well with you. Minion, M-I-N-I-O-N, Me Grognon, MCGROGNOM. Hit me up on Twitter, YouTube, or check out my weekly MMA column on kobiscorner.com. Can't wait has been the tagline for this UFC 205 event, and that wait is almost over. Have yourselves a great fight week, MMA fans. This has been Minion McGrunion saying I'll catch you sometime on the other side of that bell. Eddie, my boy, it's finally time to break down this incredible UFC 205 card. Take it away, mate.
Man, Minion, I cannot wait to break this down for everybody. Ted Czech is going to be coming on. Quick history on the card. Thank you so much, Minion, for that. I really appreciate it. Make sure you guys go check out Minion's videos. There's going to be some new rules coming up January 1st. There's going to be some new rules, some new guidelines in MMA, and Minion broke it all down for everybody up on his YouTube page. So make sure you guys go check that out on Minion McGrunion's YouTube page. And this week, guys, it all goes down. It starts off with a female fight. Caitlin Chookagian going up against Liz Carmouche, one of the American veterans here, fought in our army. Jim Miller versus Diego Alves. And then Bilal Muhammad, still on the card. He actually was just on the show. If we got any new listeners out there and you want to check that interview out, it is down below here on Apple iTunes and Podbean.com. So make sure you check it out. He actually gave us his pick and what he wants to do at UFC 205 against Vicente Luque. He said he's going to go right in there and that he's going to end it quick. He wants performance of the night. He's going to go in the stands and he's going to end up finishing watching the fight. Now, I know that might sound a little cocky, but man, he is one hell of a warrior. Let me tell you that. Here's what he thinks about Conor McGregor versus Eddie Alvarez and who he's picking. Check this out.
I'm sorry if you don't want to. I hope you got one. Prediction for the man.
Oh, yeah, I got Conor McGregor knocking him out. Yeah, he's faced that style a lot. Eddie Alvarez is not anything.
That's
so he's seen it before. Yeah, he just walks forward and tries to push the McGregor's seen it a lot. He's too smart.
There you go, Bilal Muhammad, who's actually fighting on this card. He is saying that Conor McGregor is too smart for that. He's going to be coming forward. I asked everybody that I did an interview with about this. Also on this card, guys, this card is absolutely stacked, by the way. One of the best cards. Does this compare to UFC 200? I think it trumps that, without a doubt. Also on this card, guys, Khabib Nurmagomedov, the Eagle, going up against Michael Rumble Johnson. What do you think about this matchup? Khabib has never lost a single fight in his life. Michael Johnson, hot and cold all the time. If Khabib wins, what's next? I mean, we already have a new number one contender in Tony Ferguson, who just beat RDA this weekend. The fight against Khabib was supposed to happen against Tony at the beginning of the year. It never happened. It fell through. Of all people who got injured, it was Tony. It was Tony who got injured on that. But I really do believe that fight needs to happen, win or lose against Michael Johnson here. At some point, that fight does need to happen. If Michael Johnson wins here, I'll be really surprised, honestly. He has been on a streak, knocked Dustin the Diamond out real quick. We all remember that. That was a crazy night. Uriah Hall got knocked out that night against Derek Brunson. But you know what? Michael Johnson looking like a madman out there with the power. But you know what? Khabib might be the 2-year layoff that might have affected him in that fight against Darrell Horcher, but he's ready to get back in there. Going up against Michael Johnson, yeah, it's competition for sure, but I just see him getting by Michael Johnson moving forward. He's definitely one of the title contenders, without a doubt. Khabib, good luck, brother. I got you winning this fight. Most likely, it could go to decision. They only do have 3 rounds, but I do see this going 3rd round submission. Khabib submitting Michael Johnson there. That's my pick. And then following that fight, guys, Frankie Edgar is now headlining the FS1 prelims. This is going to be free and live on FS1, 8 p.m., 5 p.m. Eastern Time, Pacific Time. Frankie Edgar versus Jeremy Stephens. And you might wonder who the hell that guy is. Jeremy Stephens, man, he's got a stacked up list of knockouts under his belt. You know what, Frankie Edgar, though, you don't want to be fighting Frankie Edgar. He did lose his last fight, but come on. Before that, he was just ranking them in, pulling all the wins in. And you know what? We watched him destroy BJ Penn. That was a very awkward fight, BJ Penn versus Frankie Edgar. But you know what? The last couple of fights that Frankie has been in, he's shown nothing but heart. with a record of 19-5. You know what? Jeremy Stephens, who's ranked 7, if he does beat Frankie, it's going to do a lot for him. And then maybe, just maybe, Conor might realize who he is. But you know what? Frankie Edgar just beat Chad Mendes in that first round knockout. Do not count this man out. He also has a win over Uriah Faber, Cub Swanson, DJ Penn, Charles Oliveira. I mean, he just keeps losing to Jose Aldo and Benson Henderson, really. Gray Maynard he's beat. It's Frankie Edgar. And for Frankie Edgar to be on this card is amazing. I really do hope that he wins. He's training with another guy who's on this card, Tyrone Woodley, who's going to be in the co-main event. So I wish Duke Rufus and everybody over there the best of luck. I got Frankie winning this. I mean, a lot of people might think that this could go to decision. Both these guys have amazing power, but Frankie is always on his feet, always cutting off angles. Jose Aldo has just looked amazing, unstoppable, focused, wanting that fight with Conor McGregor. Frankie just couldn't put a dent in him. He just couldn't. Jose Aldo was blocking every single takedown. Jeremy Stephens is going to want to stand and bang, and he's got power behind those hands. We saw what he did in his last fight against the former champion. We saw what happened, and honestly, it could go either way. Is it the right time? Is Jeremy Stephens going to seal this win? It could happen. I just see Frankie Edgar taking this. And then after that, guys, Miesha Tate versus Raquel Pennington, who's ranked 8th. Miesha Tate, #1 contender still in that bantamweight division right now. The Cupcake, who's coming off a loss from UFC 200, main event against Amanda Nunes, who's now the champion. You know, Miesha is one of the front runners in female MMA, without a doubt. You got to thank Miesha as much as you thank Ronda, in my opinion. Rocky has had one hell of a year. She's 8-6. Miesha Tate's 18-6. It just shows Miesha Tate's a veteran fighter. She's always been at the top of the list. She was a champion in Strikeforce before Ronda fought her. I mean, people do think that they fought 3 times. No, they only fought 2 times, guys. Once in Strikeforce, once in the UFC. Miesha really wants that fight again. Ronda's always overlooking Miesha, but you can't. You cannot overlook Miesha. If Rocky is overlooking Miesha here, she's got a long night ahead of her because that last fight, she had a really tough weight cut. We can go back and look at the videos if you want. If my listeners haven't seen it, I suggest that. Very awful weight cut. It explains a lot about the performance that she had at UFC 200. I'm not saying anything against Amanda Nunes' striking power. She's a great striker. Miesha just wasn't there that night, and I'm not the only one who thinks it. Rocky, amazing year. Great matchup. I'm leaning to Miesha, though. I got Miesha winning this. 3 rounds. Could be a decision. I could see Miesha winning by a submission, though. Let me know what you guys think. If you want to play along, it's never too late. Make sure you get your picks in before fight night goes down on UFC Pick'em. If you want to play in my league, all you got to do is message me on Twitter. I'm not going to remind you guys again. Maybe I will. All right, guys. Donald Cowboy Cerrone versus Kelvin Gastelum. Ranked 9th, Donald Cowboy has been killing it lately, racking in a win over Rick the Horror Story, racking in wins left and right, but his last loss was to the former champ RDA, where he got knocked out quick. He's going up against Kelvin Gastelum, who reminds us of a young Johnny Hendricks. He realized that he had striking power, just like Ted said tonight on Evil and Intoxicated. He realized he had striking power, but originally was a wrestler, and then that's not working out for him lately. I mean, he did beat Nate Marquardt. He lost against Tyrone Woodley. His last loss to Neil Magny, who took that fight on short notice. I had Kelvin winning that night. Neil went in there and took him on short notice. The last fight, though, Kelvin Gastelum versus Johnny Hendricks. What did we see? We saw a great Kelvin Gastelum go in there with a great game plan, but you got to switch things up against Donald Cerrone. He's got that Muay Thai skill. He's got the combinations. He will submit you. This guy is an absolute animal, and he wants that number 5 spot. I got Donald Cowboy Cerrone winning this by maybe a knockout. I mean, Kelvin Gastelum's never been knocked out before, but that could happen. I really believe that Cowboy is going to sink in that submission on him. I think he's going to drag Kelvin out into that 3rd round, be able to tire him out with the Muay Thai, strikes to the body. If he doesn't finish him early on in the fight, I mean, Kelvin's a tough kid. He's a young kid too, but Donald Cowboy Cerrone, he wants another shot at that title, and he's coming for it. And if he can still win over Kelvin Gastelum and steal that number 5 spot, he's on his way. I mean, this division's kind of backed up. I called it's cul-de-sac. It's really cul-de-sac right now if Conor McGregor does win this fight. But you know what, Donald? You can't choke when the lights are shining, especially in New York. So we're gonna see who shows up. Is it gonna be the cowboy that we all love, or is it gonna be the cowboy who's beside himself? always good to watch the weigh-ins, guys. I always suggest before you make your predictions to watch the weigh-ins and then go from there. You never know what Donald Cowboy is going to be showing up. So right now, I do have Cowboy winning 3rd round by submission. All right, guys, we got a special guest coming on now. Ted Czech is going to help me break down Chris Weidman versus Yoel Romero. This was originally a 4-man tournament. We're going to talk about it, tell you exactly what happened. Let's give Ted a call. He's standing by. All right, guys, we got our first guest of the night and one of my favorite people to talk with. I do a show with him every Wednesday night on YouTube Live. And make sure you guys check it out. Evil and Intoxicated, the man, the myth, the legend, the infamous Ted Czech. What's going on, Ted?
Absolutely, yeah, infamous. That I like being referred to as infamous. How you doing, Eddie? I'm doing good, man.
I'm doing awesome, and it's MMA Christmas, man. UFC 205. You're starting the show off with a bang to tell our listeners a little background about Chris Weidman, Yoel Romero, and the way that we're doing the show is I'm going to have a couple guests on to break down some of the individual fights here, and I thought it would be perfect since we represent the East Coast to represent our East Coast brother, Chris Weidman. So, are you ready for this weekend, Ted? And what are you going to be doing?
Well, I am. I'm trying to get. I'm psyched. I'm just. I'm beside myself. I'm so stoked for this thing, and finally we're getting like the embedded series. I think the first one came out today. There were some people that I was, taking. I was looking at some of the message boards, and people were saying, "Where's all the promotion for this thing?" And it's slowly been building, and now we're going to see it all. It's going to come to bear this week, and it's just going to be amazing, man. I can't wait for it.
Well, a lot of the people that didn't know UFC 205, or UFC, they bring it up on the World Series. Every single game they were talking about it, so I'm sure we'll get some new viewers as well this week for UFC fans. All right.
Wasn't Dana?
Yeah, Dana White was there, wasn't he?
And he was repping a Nike sweatshirt.
Get out of here! Get out of here!
I mean, unless somebody doctored the photo that I saw, he had a Nike, because this was just after the Fabricio Verdum, that whole mess with Verdum and his Instagram. And, here's Dana, he was supposed to be the most visible, most vocal proponent of Reebok, and he's repping Nike.
Oh my God.
Talk about a hypocrite.
Now I got to check that out. My listeners, you guys got to check that out, because everyone's getting in trouble if they don't rock Reebok. And for the president, or not the president, what is Dana now?
I think he still is the president. He's just not really in control anymore. He still owns a piece of it. He's still got a little bit of a piece of the ownership. But overall, WME, IMG they're pulling the strings now.
All right, so let's jump right into it for all of our listeners that are patiently waiting for this weekend to arrive. UFC 205, one of the main card fights that me and Ted are going to be breaking down for everybody. Chris Weidman versus Yoel Romero. What's your take on this? First off, Ted, originally it's a 4-man tournament. Rockhold pulls out. We need to wait for the winner of Weidman and Yoel to get the belt from Bisping. But that kind of got screwed up this week by Rockhold. But who do you think's going to win this fight and why?
Well, I picked Yoel Romero. I'm going to stick with that. I respect Chris Weidman. I think he's a great fighter. But I don't know. There's just, Yoel Romero, despite the steroid thing, he got busted for steroids. When you look at the photos of the guy, he doesn't seem to have changed much.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the deal is there, whether he's just a genetic freak and he was just juicing to recover and not necessarily to gain muscle mass, but it's virtually identical, as Goldie would say, between before and after. So that being said, just to get that kind of out of the way, I am picking Romero to win, and he's older. He is older. God, he's pushing 40, but he's like the ageless wonder. And Weidman is only 32, but I'm picking Romero to win. I think he takes it in terms of wrestling. I think he's he's got some amazing striking that he's really brought along with his wrestling game. You know, with just some spectacular. You know, he's got that flying knee and spinning back fist and just crazy stuff. You know, he's very he's just really taken to it. I mean, he's a natural. Well, I don't want to say natural, but he is a. I mean, he's an athlete. He's just an athlete through and through, and a true athlete can pick up things. You know, like GSP picked up wrestling. Well, Romero was a wrestler and he picked up striking. So I think he beats Weidman. You know, I think he beats him quite handily. I think. I don't know if he's going to finish Weidman. Weidman is incredibly tough.
Yeah, they only have 3 rounds.
Right. Weidman is incredibly tough, and he's both mentally. I think his mental game is actually his biggest strength. I mean, you remember he did not back down, as his song, his walkout song, "I Won't Back Down" by Tom Petty says. You know, he didn't back down from Anderson Silva. Like most people, got intimidated by the guy. Not Weidman. So I would say that's actually his biggest strength, is his mental toughness. So I see a unanimous decision win for Yoel Romero in this one. How about you?
I mean, I've been hearing that a lot lately. Not many people think there will be a finish here. Both guys only have 1 loss each. And, you know, Chris Weidman, it was his last fight against Rockhold. And once again, the not backing down part of that fight, where he took, almost like 200 strikes from Rockhold before before they wanted to call it off. But the wrestling and Brazilian jiu-jitsu of Yoel, man, and he's in a tough spot too. He wants a shot at that belt, and I would love to see Yoel versus Bisping if it gets sorted out. But we all remember his last fight wasn't too exciting against Jacare.
Yeah, it was a split decision win for Romero. But yeah, cause I'm looking at his record right here. He has UFC 194 split decision win for Romero over Souza. But you know, I was looking at Weidman's at his record, and you know, the last fight was the loss to Rockhold. Prior to that, it was a win over Vitor Belfort. Then before that, Lyoto Machida, and before that, twice with Anderson Silva. So you could look at those guys and you could say, well, first of all, they're all Brazilian. But second of all, you could say they're pretty much all
at the end of their career.
Hill. They're all on the downslide of their career. You could make a case for saying, you know, you could make a case saying that Weidman has really only faced guys who were over the hill, and that once he ran into somebody who was pretty much in the same position career-wise, i.e. Luke Rockhold, he lost. And Luke Rockhold was able to capitalize on that one mistake.
That one spinning back kick.
Weidman went for that crazy. Right. He went for that crazy spinning back kick, and Rockhold pounced, and that was all she wrote.
That was the huge turn in that.
Absolutely. So, you know, there's that to consider as well. And you mentioned Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I mean, I think Weidman has that category. I think Weidman, if you want to break it down, you know, striking, wrestling, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Weidman has the advantage strictly in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But I would say that Romero, who was he was a world champion wrestler and competed in the Olympics. What did he get in the Olympics? I forget what medal he achieved, but he medaled in the Olympics. I know that. I would say his wrestling's better, and striking wise, we're talking about 2 different styles of striking. We're talking about in Romero, a very dynamic. I really don't want to. People would say explosive. People like to throw that word around, explosive. But I mean, he's fast. When you break it down, what does explosive mean? It means he's fast and he's strong, and that's true. And Weidman is more of a very tactical. Although he does have some knockout power, we've seen him do that. But I mean, look at Anderson Silva, right? He knocked him out,
and not
clean.
Not really known for his submission game.
But he has a different type.
Sorry, Ted. He's not really known for his submission game, but yet he has 3 wins by submission. So let's not forget about that either.
Okay. Oh, you're talking about Romero?
I'm talking about Weidman.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, he's yeah. I mean, he trains with Matt Serra, who's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and I believe Serra got his black belt from Renzo Gracie. So you can trace the lineage back there. No, yeah, Weidman is great on the ground. You're talking pure submissions.
Well, just like you said, man, if we look back at the last couple of fights, you said that, Weidman's last couple of opponents, a lot of guys at the end of the career. I mean, you don't like saying that a lot, but we're talking about the age. You know what I mean? We're not saying that these guys are washed up, really, but, they are towards at the end of their career. But if you look at Yoel Romero's last couple of fights, we mentioned Souza, Lyoto, Tim Kennedy. I mean, come on. Derek Brunson, he has a win over. I mean, these are all great fighters. This is going to be one exciting fight in this entire card. I don't see many of the fights going to decision, but I could agree with you here saying that, well, it is 3 rounds. Both these guys are probably going to be really patient in the first half of this fight. I will agree with you there, but I'm going to disagree with Yoel winning. I would really like to see Chris Weidman win. It could go either way here. I think Weidman... I don't know. I just think Weidman striking here could be a factor. I mean, both are really great wrestlers, but I'm just pulling for Weidman on this one. I think Jacare is going to win his fight, whoever that opponent's against, and we might see Weidman versus Jacare, and I would like to see that. So I'm pulling for that.
Well, you know what? Some just came to mind here. If this was a 5-round fight, I would probably be leaning more towards Weidman. I think he has far better cardio. When you look at Romero, the guy is heavily muscled, right? He's a muscle-bound dude. Let's not beat around the bush, right? That tends to slow fighters down. He's going to come out and blitz, but then again, it's only a 3-round fight. It's not a 5-round fight. So that's another thing to consider. Is Romero, could he gas within 3 rounds, and then the advantage would swing towards Weidman. Definitely I would think a 5-round fight, but a 3-round fight, he might be able to go. We've seen him. I mean, we've seen Romero go 3 rounds. But then again, if he's on the bottom, if Weidman happens to get on top and tires him out that way, or kind of tires him out in the clinch, we could see Romero gas. So, that's just another factor to consider there.
Well, I appreciate you giving all of our listeners, my listeners, a view on your point. And if you guys want to hear more of Ted's breakdowns, make sure you check out his YouTube page, guys. He updates every day with all the latest breaking news. And I do a show with Ted every Wednesday night up on YouTube with an open chat room. And we're actually going to be breaking down this card, Ted, with the MMA advocates on Friday.
Right, but we're going to have our show on Wednesday, Eddie, right?
Yes, correct.
Oh yeah, okay, all right. You got me worried there for a second, because I was like, oh, we got to do our own thing.
Oh no, that's our baby, man. That's our baby. But
yes, sir.
One thing I want to touch my listeners on really quick while you're on the phone with me is the real highlight of this fight is that 4-man tournament. And I mentioned at the beginning of the interview that Jacare doesn't have an opponent next. Who would you like to see step in place of Rockhold if they do give Souza an opponent?
I would like to see Gegard Mousasi.
There you go.
Yeah, Gegard Mousasi, who I think is currently at maybe number 5 in the rankings. I mean, we know as we go along with as we've seen recently with the past, especially this last year, rankings don't seem to mean too much. It's kind of more who has who can build more hype around themselves, right? I mean, you had Nate Diaz who came out of nowhere and went on this rant about Conor McGregor, and boom,
you got it, yeah.
And he was fighting Conor McGregor, for God's sake. The hottest property in the UFC. So you can talk your way into a title shot. I think it was Ariel Helwani who was critical of Tony Ferguson for not saying more in his post-fight speech, or in his in-cage interview there. He could have said a lot more. He could have called out the winner of Eddie Alvarez versus Conor McGregor. He didn't really do that. And so now there's now people are like, oh, is it going to be Tony or is it going to be Habib. Now that's another fight for another time. But yeah, back to your original question. I think Mousasi is in a great position now to step in. I thought you talk about this 4-man quote unquote tournament that we had there at one point, and with Rockhold injured, I think it's a perfect time, a perfect opportunity for Mousasi to step in, and he could that would be a great fight to see him fight Jacare.
Well, a lot of people said they would like to see Silva step in, try to get his gain, but I think Gegard deserves it a little more here. Honestly, I think that this climb for the belt is going to be gold, and a lot of the fights on this card, Ted, are very, very important and change a lot of the storylines here, whoever wins on this main card. I cannot wait for UFC 205. I really appreciate you stopping in on Pure Evil MMA. Once again, I think this is your third time now on this podcast, so I really appreciate it.
I think it probably is, Eddie. It's been great every time, man. It's been awesome.
So I'm looking forward to talking with you on Wednesday. We have a lot to talk about, a lot to break down. And for all my listeners out there, make sure you check it out. All you got to do is search Pure Evil MMA. Ted, you know what we do at this point in the interview. I hand the imaginary microphone over to my guest, and I'm not even going to call you a guest anymore. You're my MMA brother at this point. So, for all of our new listeners out there that aren't familiar with you, where can they find you?
Well, yeah, first of all, I just want to say thanks to everybody. Thanks for tuning into Eddie's show, and thanks for putting up with me. And my name is Ted Czech, TEDCZECH.
That's not CHECH, that's CZECH. I had to say it, Ted.
You got it. You got it, tough guy. So just look me up on YouTube. I'm there. You just throw in my name, you'll find me. And Eddie's right. Just about every day, I try to upload a video or two on the latest news, whatever's going on, whatever the big news is in MMA. I try to do a video on it, and so I give my opinion, and then I ask for your opinion. So I've got my own little community going on there. Eddie's got his thing with the Evil Army, and so stop by and throw your comments down below to my videos.
Thank you, Ted, and I will be speaking with you on Wednesday, brother, and I cannot wait to break down this epic card. It's MMA Christmas, man. It really is. I'm so excited. All right, guys, that gets us into our next fight. I want to thank Ted for coming on and helping me break down that fight. I was having a little trouble with that one. So on to our next fight. Finally, a title fight here. Joanna Jędrzejczyk versus Karolina Kowalkiewicz, or as others pronounce it, Karolkiewicz. I've been hearing a lot of different ways to pronounce these two women's names. They even pronounce it differently every time I hear them pronounce it. But you know what? It's going to be a great fight. Joanna needs to look out for that clinch, though. We saw in Carolina's last fight against Rose Namajunas, Rose looking unstoppable. Took out Paige Van Zandt, beat Tisha Torres in the rematch, and then gets to Carolina. And if she beat Carolina, she would have been next for the title shot fighting Joanna. However, Carolina comes in there and destroyed Rose. And honestly, all I can say about that is that she impressed so many people out there and did an amazing job in the clinch. But Joanna, man, her striking is on point. Both these girls are undefeated. Joanna 12-0, Carolina 10-0, but they have fought before. In their amateur career, Joanna has beaten Carolina by submission. And Carolina can thank Joanna for actually getting into the UFC. She's the one who told Dana, like, look, over in Poland, this girl just won a bunch of medals or belts, and everyone over there is praising her. I want everyone in Poland to know who the world champ is. Let's get her into the UFC. So Dana White calls her up, brings her over to the UFC. I think she had 4 fights or 3 fights. She fought Randa Marcos, Heather Clark, who just fought the other night, and then Rose Namajunas, beat all 3 of them, and now she gets her title shot. So Joanna begged for this shot, finally gets it. It's here in New York City. We all know that her last fight, she said it. She said she wants to fight in New York when she beat Claudia Gadelha. Now, if we compare Claudia to Carolina, 2 different fighters, I honestly thought Claudia would have had a better chance at beating Joanna, but Joanna's cardio, this is a 5-round fight. Joanna's cardio, she just gets better and better, keeps the same pace throughout the fight. 3-inch height advantage too, Joanna. I mean, it doesn't make much of a difference, but if we look at the MMA math, I hate to say it, but it's a pretty close matchup However, landed per minute, Joanna 6.36, Carolina 5.98. Accuracy 48 for Joanna, 40 for Carolina. Attempted per minute 2.32 for Joanna, 3.87 for Carolina. So there, she trumps her there. But defense, Joanna's defense is on point, guys. 67.03 going up against Carolina, 56.17. You may ask, what the hell are you talking about? Well, you know what, guys? I don't like adding it in. It never adds up. It never makes sense at the end of the day. You can't really use it to your advantage. But you know what? It does give you a little foresight here. Joanna has looked unstoppable in the UFC. Beat everyone that we've put in front of her. Claudia, Valerie Letourneau, Jessica Penne, Carla Esparza. I mean, come on. Juliana Lima. It's just been out of control. Her Muay Thai, her boxing, her striking. She'll break her fist while she's punching you in the face and keep throwing the punches, putting together amazing combinations. But like I said, she's got to watch out for that clinch. Carolina throws those big knees, knock the wind out of you. Those do some damage. It's going to be an exciting fight. It could be a huge upset if Carolina wins, and watch out for that. But I'm going for Joanna to win this. It might be by decision. Most likely by decision. It's a strawweight fight, but honestly, guys, Joanna did break some news earlier in the week saying that, she wants to retire undefeated. She might retire soon, and I hate when fighters say that. But honestly, it's one of the biggest fights of this woman's career. She's going to be representing Poland here to show everybody who the best in Poland and in the world is. And she's actually one of the front runners to open up a new weight division for the lower weight class, and she wants to be champion there as well. And then also this week, I saw that Cyborg is actually going for it too, saying, you know what, I'm one of the big stars. Why don't you start promoting me like one? Let's do a season of Ultimate Fighter. And all my listeners that are listening right now, they all know that we called this a couple weeks ago. We said that that's what needed to happen. That she needed to speak up, and there you go. They made a poster and everything for it. The women are out there, the talent out there. So you know what? The women have so much further to go. We've seen them shine this year, 2016, UFC 200. They shined as the main event, Miesha Tate versus Amanda. Now you got Joanna on UFC 205 going against Karolina Kowalkiewicz for the title. I got Joanna to win this. Let me know what you guys think on Twitter. Let me know at Pure Evil MMA if you want to play along. Once again, I am going to say it again. Make sure you follow us on UFC Pick'em. All you got to do is message me on Twitter, and I'll give you the link. Our co-main event now. Tyron Woodley going against Wonderboy Stephen Thompson. The champ going against the number 2 ranked guy in the division. Coming off a huge win against Robbie Lawler, who seemed untouchable for a while, winning last year's Fight of the Year. Woodley, though, man, beating Kelvin Gastelum before that. Dong Hong Kim. He beat Carlos Condit. He's beaten, a whole bunch of guys. The list goes on, even all the way back to Koscheck. One of the best fights. And they've been putting these fights up on YouTube. If you guys don't have Fight Pass, I suggest you to get it. But if not, make sure you check out the YouTube embedded and also the free fights. This is an interesting fight. Woodley has the long arms and reach, but the distance control that Woodley handles, we saw in the Johnny Hendricks fight. Johnny Hendricks, we never saw get handled like that. Every time he would go in, Stephen Thompson would shut him right down. There were a couple shots that he was able to get in, but Johnny Hendricks just didn't know what to do. He had no game plan. So what does Woodley do? He brings in Sage Northcutt to, kind of impersonate him. It's not the same level of talent, but a younger level, I'd have to say. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, for this, was in kickboxing, undefeated champion. Comes into MMA a little later in his life. He's 33 years old, but he's got 7 wins by knockout, 1 win by submission, 5 wins by decision. We remember that fight that he had against Jake Ellenberger where he landed those nasty, nasty spin kicks. He beat Robert Whitaker, one of the front runners as well in that division. This is going to be an exciting fight. A lot of people are pulling for Wonderboy to win this, but you can't undermine Woodley, guys. With 7 wins by knockout, 4 wins by submission, 5 wins by decision, 16-3 record. He is the chosen one. Don't forget that. But he is a little shorter. The arms make up for it. Is he going to be able to go in there in that first or second round and put a stop to Stephen Thompson? That's how it's going to be done if he wants to win this fight. They got 5 rounds. I see Wonderboy having the better cardio here and better distance control, especially. Ted Czech is saying that he does think it's going to end by a knockout kick. The striking and conditioning of Wonderboy has looked phenomenal. He's putting together great work at his camp, training with his father. His father's in his corner. It's just a great relationship. Woodley representing California, representing explosiveness, the speed, the power, the wrestling, the pressure, all on point. Will Wonderboy be able to handle that? I just don't think if he doesn't take him out early in the fight, this is Wonderboy's fight without a doubt in my head. You guys want my official decision? Whew. I went back on it before on Evil Intoxicated. I did not know who I wanted to win originally. I'm going to tell you guys, originally I did think Tyron Woodley was going to win this, but if it doesn't finish in the first or second round, I'm giving this to Wonderboy if he can escape that. So I guess I have to give him my official pick. My official pick is Wonderboy, but watch out for that upset early on in the fight. You know what this means, guys. Conor McGregor versus Eddie Alvarez next. Finally, it is here, and this could be the biggest fight in UFC history. Conor McGregor could win both straps, and he says it's going to take an army to get him away from him, that he will defend the belt. Dana White saying, I don't know, but you know what? If Conor McGregor does this, you got to let him at least ride it through. I know a lot of people out there complain, well, he doesn't defend his belt. Yeah, he doesn't defend his belt because he doesn't want to move backwards. He's always taking a step forward, and every time he takes a step forward, it's given to him, and he just keeps going on. And the big rumor, apparently, is either Dee Devlin is pregnant, or, check this out, I heard this as well, Mayweather is going to be ringside, and if Conor McGregor wins this fight, he's going to call that fight out for New Year's Eve. Remember earlier in the year, Mayweather called Conor McGregor a $100 million fight New Year's Eve in New York. Conor McGregor got his pair of boxing gloves, been training, and, that kind of screwed up with the Nate fight, but then was able to get that win right back under him. But you know what, guys? I don't think that's it at all. I think the big news is Dee Devlin. The big news is Dee Devlin. Andrea showed me a picture of Dee on Instagram a couple months ago compared to a picture that she took recently this week. Man, she gained at least 50 pounds. That picture's up on my Twitter. Make sure you check it out. I did a side-by-side comparison. Let's break it right down for everybody. 28-4, Eddie Alvarez coming off a huge win to RDA. RDA just didn't look himself there. But you know what? Anthony Pettis, similar opponent to Conor McGregor. Every time Pettis tried to throw a spin kick, tried to be flashy, tried to do anything with his striking against Eddie Alvarez, Eddie shut him right down, put him right up against the cage, and utilized his wrestling. Anthony Pettis couldn't do anything. Wasn't the most exciting fight. Gilbert Melendez fight, another fight, but his last loss was to Cowboy Cerrone. We all remember that. Eddie Alvarez coming in the UFC. He was a Bellator champ, big following in Philadelphia. I would not be surprised if Eddie could knock out Conor McGregor. I really wouldn't be surprised. He has amazing striking. His boxing, wrestling is all on point. But Conor, once again, great distance control. He believes highly in himself. People say he gives up, but his grappling as well. He's got great grappling, guys. He doesn't get credit for that. His striking and accuracy. He's one of the most accurate fighters in the UFC. Look what he did to Jose Aldo. Not the same, just like Conor said. Chad Mendes. These are all similar fighters that I'm about to say. Chad Mendes, Dennis Seaver, Dustin the Diamond, Diego Brandao, Max Holloway, Marcus Brimage. Very similar fighters like Eddie Alvarez, kind of same body. It does say that they're the same height. I have to disagree. Conor McGregor is a little taller than Eddie Alvarez. At least that's what I saw in the standoff. Conor McGregor is being underrated, though, by Eddie Alvarez. Eddie's saying there is no Santa Claus. But you know what? It sure does feel like Christmas. I do have to tell you guys that. My pick here, it's a 5-round fight. If it gets dragged out later, I mean, Eddie could end this fight, guys. Do not be surprised. This is a test for Conor McGregor, and Conor should be the underdog, rightfully so. He's a featherweight moving up to try to take out the champ right away. Was the match with RD a better matchup for him? No. I do like this match with Eddie Alvarez. I think this is a perfect matchup for Conor. I think Conor can utilize this. Eddie always moving forward. He's always moving forward. Conor's used to that. He's smart, just like Bilal Muhammad said on here. I got Conor McGregor winning this by knockout in the 3rd round. He says first, I say it could be third. Ted is saying that he thinks Conor McGregor is going to be trying to take Eddie Alvarez down, and that's what none of us would expect. What do you think about that, guys? Let me know what you guys think, who you guys pick for this. This is going to be an epic event. I cannot wait for this all to go down and take place at Madison Square Garden. It's going to be absolutely epic. And if Conor McGregor can seal this win, it will be the biggest win in UFC history. Not to mention, it's going to be in Madison Square Garden. That has to be one of the biggest things ever to happen. Well, it's that time of the show when we have to end things, close things out for everybody. I want to thank everybody for tuning in, listening to episode number 24 of Pure Evil MMA. We broke down the weekly news. We reviewed Bellator. I want to thank all of our guests that came on today. Blair Tugman, Brenden Allen, Ted Czech for breaking down Chris Weidman, Yoel Romero. Make sure you guys tune in next week. We have so much to talk about after this. The UFC finally here. Right in my home, right here in New York City. You better be tuning in. I will be covering this fight all night. You're listening to Pure Evil MMA. I'm Evil Eddie. You guys have a great night, a great weekend. I hope you enjoyed today's show. Make sure you give Ted a follow. Make sure you guys give Brenden Allen a follow. Blair Tugman. They're all on Twitter. Check it out. Have a great night. Have a great weekend. Let's get ready for one hell of an event. It's going to be epic. And most of all, you better behave yourselves.